Your culture shapes so much of who you are. As a kid in New Jersey, I was surrounded by interesting cultural influences. I was raised in a faithful Jewish household, and my family did all the things that faithful Jewish families did. We had Shabbat dinner, we went to synagogue, we held the traditions of our faith and honored our heritage. With my friends, on the other hand, I listened to hip hop, hung out in the streets. Many of my friends didn't understand my heritage or traditions. And at times, I even had some conflict. There was the Jason who was fluent in culture and wanted to explore all that the world had to offer. And there was the Jason who loved his faith. I felt a calling, an unexplainable desire to dig deeper into the unknown. I knew there was something more. This led me to the study of everything from Eastern religion to vague spirituality in pursuit of the truth. But I couldn't find anything that quenched my spiritual thirst. The world can be really noisy, especially for a teenager in the midst of figuring out who he is. Often I would sit on my floor alone and meditate. It was a way for me to just clear my head and block out the noise. One day I was doing just that, meditating alone, when everything changed. It's so interesting to be back in New York City, where my spiritual journey all began. I used to come into the city to study meditation and yoga, and I'll never forget that day. I was sitting in my bedroom and I was meditating, and all of a sudden my soul began to shake and vibrate and literally left my body. I could see myself go through the roof and into the clouds, and the next thing I know, I was in heaven and I saw this king high and lifted up, Ram Nisa in Hebrew, and he was shrouded and enclosed in this glory, and my body began to shake under the power of heaven. It was like every cell in my being began to come alive and felt connected in a way that I can't even begin to describe or explain. And as I was standing there in that encounter, I knew that king seated on that throne was Yeshua, that it was Jesus. I knew nothing about him growing up as a Jewish kid, but I knew that was him. And he began to speak to me, and he said, "Jason, many are called, but few are chosen." And I was like, "Lord, am I chosen?" And he's like, "Yes, you're chosen." I was like, wow, I couldn't believe that the Lord would choose me. I had no idea what that meant, but the next thing I know, I was down in my body, still shaking under the power of heaven. I ran out of my bedroom yelling, "I'm called to serve him. I'm called to serve him." My mom's like, "You're called to serve who?" Jesus, we're Jewish, for goodness sake. But God began to work powerfully in my life. And my best friend, John, called me on the telephone. He said, "Jason, could you tell the difference between the Old Testament and the New Testament?" And I was like, "Sure." He read me this passage about the crucifixion, and I was like, "That's the New Testament." He said, "Very good, let me read you another passage. He was bruised for our transgressions. He was crushed for our iniquities, and by his stripes we're healed." He said, "Jason, old or new?" And I was like, "Clearly that's the New Testament." He said, "No, that's Isaiah 53, the Jewish prophet speaking 700 years before Yeshua, Jesus, ever walked the face of the earth." And I began to be provoked to jealousy. So I agreed to go with him to this Messianic congregation where I heard the message of the Messiah, the good news, for the first time. And at the end of the service, I prayed to receive the Lord, had no idea what I had done, but they gave me the first Brit Chadashah, the first New Testament I had ever read, went home and read it, was blown away by all the Messianic prophecies. And that verse that Yeshua said to me in heaven was actually a verse from the New Testament. And I was like, he truly is the one whom Moses and the prophets spoke of. And I gave my life fully to him. I hid the Bible in my bedroom. God forbid my mother should ever find it. But of course she found that Bible because you can't hide anything from your mom. She says, "What is this that I found in your room?" She said, "Don't tell me come one of those Jews who believe in Jesus." And she said, "You got to go meet with the rabbi. He'll set you straight." In preparation for my meeting with the rabbi, I got out my Tanakh, my Hebrew Bible, and I began to search the scriptures. I really wanted to understand, what did the Hebrew scriptures have to say about the Messiah? What was the job description of the Messiah? Was what I believed to be true about Yeshua, Jesus being the Messiah, was it supported by what the scripture had to say? Did he actually fulfill prophecy? And the more I delved into scriptures, something became clear to me. The Bible is the greatest mystery book of all time. Between two leather-bound covers lies infinite secrets split into two. The first half of those secrets are steeped in Jewish tradition, ancient prophecies, and vital cultural context, the Old. The other half, prophecies fulfilled, revelations revealed, and an incredible message of salvation, the New. The mysteries in these two halves unravel to reveal a narrative that gives even more insight into Jesus, Yeshua, and his intense love. We're diving headfirst into these mysteries, connecting the dots between the Old Testament and the New so that you can unlock the mysteries of the Messiah.
Every book starts with an author. The author sits down, thinking about the kind of story they wish to tell, and begins writing that story. Usually, they start from the beginning, and usually they know what happens at the end. The Bible was written by a diverse group of individuals across continents, cultures, and generations. You see, the Bible isn't a story, it's a compilation, a collection of poems, songs, genealogy, historical accounts, letters, and prophecies. These writings were inspired, beautiful, and powerful, but the writers who penned them aren't the authors. When we zoom out, getting a glimpse of the themes and prophecies in Scripture, we see a larger force at work. This is a story of redemption and incomparable love. This story wasn't crafted by the writers and poets that wrote down the words we read in our Bibles today. The author, since the very beginning, has been God. The men and women that wrote these pages aren't the artist. They are the brush. To see the bigger picture starts with the roots planted in the Old Testament. The main root here, a prophecy. The prophecy of a coming Messiah. This is our starting place, the one root from which all other prophecies grow.